I bought this motorcycle from Italy and brought it back to the Netherlands, and I did the whole registration process myself. First, I'll give you a 30-second overview of the whole process. Then I'll take you through the whole process and the story of what happened and how I actually got this motorcycle. And towards the end, I'm gonna go through some important things that you need to know if you're planning on doing this yourself. And of course, I'll give you a whole cost breakdown and did I actually save any money by doing this. Now here's your 30-second overview. I've basically broken the whole process down into two main steps. Step one is getting the bike from Italy to the Netherlands. So in step one is basically finding a bike, purchasing a bike, dealing with its paperwork, and getting it transported. Now step two is when I have the bike here and getting it from sitting in my garage to making it road legal. And that step two is basically getting the bike registered, paying for your BPM, which is the taxes, getting your registration plates, and getting insurance. So back in 2025, on my Speed Twin 900, I went on a tour, and when I came back from that tour, I decided that I wanted to get a Speed Twin 1200. Now at that time when I was looking online trying to figure out if I can afford a Speed Twin 1200, the prices were quite high here, and I'll give you some examples on the screen now. On average, I was looking at about 14,000 euros here in the Netherlands. And to be honest, I was really looking forward to getting the Baja Orange, which was my favorite color, and I couldn't find one in the Netherlands at that time. So randomly, one day I decided to go online and see if there's a Baja Orange Speed Twin available. And I came across a website that I wasn't on before called Auto Scout 24, which basically you can find motorcycles across all of Europe. And I genuinely couldn't believe my eyes because I was seeing Baja Orange Speed Twins with low mileage starting from like 9,000 euros to 10,000, 11,000, which was a lot lower than what I was seeing here in the Netherlands. And honestly, that's where this whole thing started. So of course, the next big question was, how do you actually buy a motorcycle from a dealership in another country? So after doing a lot of research, I figured out that number one thing I'm not going to do is buy the bike privately. Because when you purchase a bike privately, there's a lot of paperwork involved that a lot of people don't know what to do or how to do it. So when you go to a dealership, they usually have experience in this and they can help you with the process rather than somebody that's private if you're not going to be in the country to pick up the bike from that person. And by the way, I know I haven't said this yet, I purchased this bike from Italy without even stepping foot into Italy. Now I am going to share with you where I purchased the motorcycle from because I had such a great experience, and when I did the research and find the dealership, at that time, they had over 1,000 5-star reviews. Now, I hope I'm saying this correctly, but I think the name of the dealership is Mazzola SRL Motorcycles. It's a dealership just north of Milan in Italy. At the time of this recording, I just checked to see if they still have good standings, and they have 1,282 4.9 star reviews. And if you go through the reviews, you can see that everybody had such a phenomenal experience with this dealership. And lucky for me, when I was looking for a Baja Orange Speed Twin, they had one in stock. Now, the first thing I did was I sent them an email asking for the Baja Orange Speed Twin, what the process would be if I wanted to purchase a motorcycle, and I basically didn't really expect them to reply back to me because I was from a different country, and I thought maybe it was too much of a hassle for them, so they're not gonna reply to me. Within 3 hours, a gentleman by the name of Stefano replied back to me, and that's where our conversation started. And Stefano, right off the bat, answered all my questions very patiently, and I had a lot of them. After I asked my thousands of questions from Stefano, basically he broke it down for me like this. I'm going to pay for the motorcycle, I'm going to pay for the delivery, they were going to deregister the bike for me in Italy because the bike has to be deregistered in Italy saying this is no longer a part of Italian inventory. And then once the bike gets shipped to me, I have to register it here in Netherlands saying it belongs to this inventory. And then lastly, they're gonna ship the bike to me. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, handing over the money without seeing the motorcycle and trusting them that they're not gonna scam me was a little bit nerve-wracking. But because I did extensive research and I thought a dealership is not gonna ruin their reputation over one bike trying to scam somebody out. And they had so many positive reviews, and if you go into their reviews, you can see they mentioned Stefano's name multiple times. Everybody loves dealing with him. I did take the leap of faith and I just purchased the bike. After I made the payment, within minutes, they sent me a bill of sale with the price of the motorcycle and the price of the delivery on there. And of course, they sent me a few videos to showcase the bike for me. And that was kind of a nice touch from them. Now, as far as transport goes, there's basically three options that you can transport your bike. Option number one is that you go there and you pick up the bike yourself and ride it home. I believe I saw a gentleman on YouTube that he's from Ireland and he bought a bike from France. He went and picked it up himself and rode it back. Option number two is sometimes you're not able to get insurance for the bike, so you can go and pick up the bike yourself, but you got to put it on a trailer and bring it back. And of course, there's option number three, which is getting the bike delivered to you, which is the option that I chose, which also Stefano organized for me. I didn't have to do anything. He just gave me the price for it. And he said, this is the price for it, and it's going to take them 2 to 4 weeks to deliver it to you. So I paid for that, and they took care of everything else. So even though I paid for my motorcycle on October 25th, I didn't get my motorcycle until December 3rd. So it wasn't exactly Amazon Prime. Now at this point, what I loved about it is that Stefano put my motorcycle on the trickle charger and put it in the shop until the delivery company was ready to pick it up. It was kind of out of Stefano's hand at that point, because it was up to the delivery company based on their schedule when they could come and pick up the bike and deliver it to me. Throughout this whole process, they send me all the photos and the pictures because I needed to make sure that I have everything before they send the bike, because that registration is really, really important for you to have, because you need it in your home country to register your bike into your home country. And here's the name of the delivery company that they used. It's a really good company. I had a great experience with them as well. I went on their website. It showed that they have a van and they put all the motorcycles inside, and they have cameras making sure and tied it down properly. And on the day that they were going to pick up the bike from the dealership, they also sent me a photo that the bike is being loaded. So overall, it was a really nice and smooth process. Yet it wasn't fast. It was nice and smooth. And once they delivered the bike, which they did a great job of, and the bike was in a perfect condition, started up right away, and the bike looked exactly as they promised, I was very excited. The next day, I even put it in front of my garage and turned it on and kind of started staring at it for a good half an hour. But now comes to part two, where we actually have to get it from my garage onto the roads of the Netherlands legally. Now, once I received the bike, the first step for me here in the Netherlands is to take the bike to RDW. RDW is basically DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, where they register your motorcycle into the system in the Netherlands. Basically, you make an appointment with the RDW anywhere in the Netherlands to get it inspected. So they got to make sure that the bike is legal to be ridden here in the Netherlands, and making sure everything is in working order to register it into the Netherlands system. Now, because I have to take the motorcycle into the inspection center, there's two ways that I could have done that. The first way is getting a trailer, putting the bike on the back of the trailer and taking it to the inspection center. But I went for way number two, which is I was excited to ride the motorcycle, and you basically get a 1-day registration and a 1-day insurance to drive your motorcycle to the inspection center and back. Now that sounded hard and tedious, but it wasn't. I found an insurance company. They gave me a 1-day insurance, and then I just had to print a registration number that RDW gave me themselves. I just go online and just say need a 1-day registration, and then you just print it on a piece of paper and you put it on the back of the bike, and I was good to go to the inspection center for that 1 day. And the most important thing is that when you have that 1-day registration and insurance, you're only allowed to go from your home to the inspection center and back. No taking detours. Once I rode to the inspection center, the process was quite simple and fast. I paid for it, they inspected it, they gave me the papers, I rode home. It was that simple, and it was really quick. I think I was in and out under an hour. I think it was 40 minutes or so. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is something called a BPM. BPM here in the Netherlands is a tax that you got to pay on imports. Now, the good news is the BPM doesn't apply to every country in EU. Based on the research I did, some countries just have some administration fee and registration fee that you have to pay, and there is nothing like a BPM tax that you have to pay. But because I live in the Netherlands, I had to deal with the BPM, and it was kind of a tedious task trying to figure out how much money I have to pay for the BPM. But luckily, there are companies here online where you pay them a small fee, they do all the paperwork for you. All they wanted from me was the VIN number, the mileage of the motorcycle, and what year it was, and they did all the calculations for me, and they saved as much money as they possibly could. And I took their paperwork and I submitted it for BPM. Now here in the Netherlands, you need something called a vehicle registration certificate. It's a small green card that basically has all your vehicle information on it. I would assume most countries have something like this. Now here's how everything ties into each other. The vehicle registration certificate is needed for you to get a license plate for your motorcycle and get insurance for your motorcycle, because without this card, you can't get either one of those two. And the way that works is that RDW inspected my bike already, saying that the bike is safe, and then they registered into the system. Then I pay for the BPM. And once the BPM is paid for and they've checked it, they let RDW know that the BPM is paid for, and once they get that message, they create that certificate card for me. And finally, once I got that vehicle registration certificate card in the mail, I had to get insurance, which was quite simple, and I had to go get a license plate made. Here in the Netherlands, they don't send you a registration plate. It just gets registered into the system, and you go to these designated areas where they make a license plate for you. It took them about 3 minutes to make me one because it was already in the system and they knew what the number was. And once I got that plate and I got my insurance, my bike was ready to ride. Now here's some important things that you really should know before I get into the full breakdown of the cost and how much this bike actually cost me, and was it really worth it for me to go through this whole process. I checked this information at the time of recording this video, so by the time you watch it or in the future, these rules might have changed. So make sure you check the EU VAT rules before purchasing any bikes. And the rule when purchasing a motorcycle is this: if your motorcycle has less than 6,000 kilometers or is less than 6 months old, you're gonna end up paying VAT for it. So in my situation, my bike was already 2 years old and it had 10,000 kilometers, so I didn't have to pay VAT for it. One other important thing is making sure who you're buying from is a legitimate business that isn't gonna scam you out of all your money. Now earlier I told you about a gentleman that lived in Ireland, and he went and picked up the bike himself and drove it back to Ireland from France. Before committing to that, make sure there are insurance companies that cover you through that space, because when I tried to do that, because I was planning on going and picking up the motorcycle myself and riding it back, Netherlands didn't have any insurance that would cover me over the course of 3 or 4 countries that I had to go through, and neither did Italy because I'm not an Italian citizen, so they wouldn't give me one. So that wasn't even an option for me. So make sure that if you're planning on going and picking up and riding it yourself, your country does have those options for you, which I'm assuming this gentleman that did it from Ireland did. And when I was doing my research, I don't remember, I think it was on Reddit that I read somebody that really wanted a motorcycle. They flew in, saw the motorcycle, paid for it, paid for the delivery, and then they went home and then they dealt with the delivery that way. So that way you're not purchasing a motorcycle blind. You went and saw it. Sure, it's gonna cost you some time and money, but at least that way you're sure that your money is going in the right place and you're not getting scammed, and you already checked the motorcycle before purchasing it and you didn't do it like me blindly. So the part I think everybody has been waiting for, the cost breakdown, and was it actually worth it for me to go through this whole process? Now let me quickly remind you what the cost of the motorcycles were here in the Netherlands, and I paid for my bike, 2023 Speed Twin 1200, 10,300 euros. But of course that wasn't all. There's a whole bunch of other costs that came on top of it. It cost me 700 euros to get it transported from Italy to the Netherlands. The RDW inspection cost me 119 euros and 70 cents. I paid 28 euros and 37 cents for the 1-day insurance, and the RDW registration was free. And the final number that I paid for BPM was 986 euros. And finally, the number plate cost me 25 euros. So my grand total for purchasing this motorcycle was 12,159 euros and 7 cents. And if I were to compare it at the time when I was looking at the Speed Twins here, I'm looking at roughly about 1,000 to 2,000 euros that I saved on this whole process. Now here's my biggest takeaway from this whole experience. Importing a motorcycle from another EU country wasn't necessarily difficult, but the process was quite long. I mean, from the time that I purchased the motorcycle all the way to the time that the bike was legally ready to ride here in the Netherlands took me about 2 months. And for me in particular, it was wintertime, so I wasn't really riding, so I had the time to go through this whole process. I really wanted a Baja Orange because here in the Netherlands at the time I couldn't find any. And to me, the savings was worth it to go through this whole process and figure out if I'm actually gonna save any money, which luckily I did, close to 2,000 euros, which is a lot for me. And I'm glad I went through the process because I learned a lot. So yeah, that was the entire process that I went through to get this motorcycle. Now it seemed like a lot because I was telling you the story along the way, but the process isn't that difficult. Of course, I'd rather purchase here in the Netherlands. The whole process is simpler, but if I'm really saving a lot of money, I might actually look into importing again because, again, the process wasn't that difficult. Now, let me know in the comments below, would you do something like this? Or if you're planning on doing something like this and you have other questions that I haven't really covered, make sure to leave them in the comments and I'll try my best to answer them. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.